through Hulu. My son likes Pengu, which is I think is a Finland or Finnish production, about a penguin and his family, and that's really funny, because they don't really talk, human language. They just, talk penguin language, but it's funny. It's really funny. So there's no need to watch TV anymore. I mean, TV is really on its way out. I really don't think that people will be watching TV anymore in the next 5-10 years. After 20 years, people will say, TV, what is a television? There's no such thing as a television. In Japan, this is their television. Okay, their cell phones can play, broadcast, can receive, broadcast, programs directly. So they don't have televisions anymore. Whenever they want to watch like a newscast, like in real time, they just turn on their cell phone, plug in the headset, and off they go. We are not quite there yet in the United States. We still have televisions, the more conventional way of delivering content. Okay, so we talked about HDMI, eSATA. eSATA is actually quite useful. eSATA refers to external. The lowercase e refers to external. So this is external serial ATA, and I personally like at least one of these ports for backup purposes. In other words, you can have a relatively large external hard drive. You can plug it into the system through the external serial ATA connection, and that way you can back up your content using the external drive quickly, because it's faster than USB 2.0, not the newest standard. This is for audio stuff. I don't have any components that use the optical or the laser-based setup. Does anyone have any components that use the SPDIF of a motherboard? Nobody? I don't understand, why they have this standard on almost every single motherboard when very few people actually use it. It's a high fidelity, super low noise type of setup. If you want to set up, a system where your audio components would not pick up any electrical noise from your, computer, this is the way to do it, because this particular interface is optical. Okay, it cannot pick up, the electrical noise from the motherboard itself. But then you need super high-end audio components like preamp, amplifier, and so on and so forth to make use of this interface. So I would just pick any if there's no particular thing that I need to do here. Onboard video chipset, for the most part, you don't need any. Okay, if you're planning to use your external VGA card, for gaming purposes, there's no need to use a onboard video chipset. And then the other thing is your processor already has one. Every single Core i processor already has a video chipset on the processor itself, and that's why all of these motherboards, except for one, has an integrated graphics card on the chipset. Audio channels. How many channels do you guys use when you use your computer? 2. Exactly, same here. 2. It's also hooked up to a headphone, so it doesn't really matter either way. But 8 channels seems to be the most popular choice. Now, how do they get 8 channels? 7.1. Okay, so there are.
There's just different configurations.
Right.
Because you can have typically you'll have like a subwoofer, and then 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and the center. It's a really common one, but then they've just gone crazy with it these days. They'll put as many as you want.
Oh, so here's my $1 million question. Does it make any difference?
Yeah, you can. We'll do surround mixes, and it's entirely different than just a stereo feel, because you can wrap around the person, and you can. It really is good for trying to make it feel like you're part of the audience, you're there kind of situation. It's really good for that kind of stuff. And then it's fun for just
watching movies, right?
You hear this person run around you, or there was this one. It was even more. It was like a facility built just specially with I forget how many different speakers. The whole room had all over the place, and we watched that Commander, like the Russell Crowe, like I don't know, like boat one, like Commander something or another. And, like it was a cannon battle, and it was so intense. Like you know, like it was the kind of you can tell the difference at that level.
Wow.
But between like 2 more monitors for the like center left and rights, like that's a little unnecessary. But then once you start doing it's like imaging almost, like different, like because they can completely change how they want the room to sound and whatnot.
Okay.
Like, oh, you're in this room, you're in that room.
Okay, but don't you need an expert like yourself to set up all the speakers, because the position of the speakers would matter, the type of speakers would matter. So it's not like
studio or like just acoustic design is
right. So most houses are not, or most living rooms are not really set up to do that.
Rich people, that's I'll talk to people, and that's where they get a lot of their income. Is just rich people that want like crazy.
Right, right. Well, they have specific rooms in the house, for their AV stuff.
And they design it for them.
Yeah, but a rich person is not going to put a computer together, right? We won't be nickel and diming, on these components anymore. In other words, to the common people, or to the people who are actually going to put a system together, it will make a difference, but probably not as much as with a super high-end setup.
Well, I mean, just doing a simple surround, you notice the difference yourself, just as a consumer. But that's as far as.
Do they have wireless, speakers now? I mean, because one of the things that I don't like, about a surround sound setup is, I have to route the wire, through the ceiling, so it doesn't look, hokey.
No, yeah, they have some. I mean, it's not. Like then you're battling with like always,
Right.
It's,
Yeah. Don't turn on the microwave, right? Or the blender. The blender is the killer, man. Because of the motor electrical noise, it's a wide spectrum type of noise. There's no way to get rid of that one. The microwave is easier to get rid of because it's focused on a particular frequency. Maximum LAN speed, we just go for a 1 gigabit per second. One connection is good. USB 1, USB 2. Now this one is kind of interesting because I personally like a lot of USB ports. I have 2 hubs already, 2 external hubs, and every time you go through an external hub, the speed of the devices will go down. Okay, so if you use external hard drives and you're going through like 2 hubs before you get to the motherboard, it's going to run slow. So you want to have direct connections. And this is the IEEE 1394 standard, otherwise known as FireWire. Is something that you might want to use if you have an older camcorder or older AV equipment that uses FireWire, but most of the new ones only use USB. So there's no, to most people it's not an important factor. Okay, form factor is the fun part because now we have 4 form factors. Basically, they determine the size of the motherboard itself. We have the typical ATX motherboard, which is kind of like a standard size. It's about this long and about this wide. It's not really big or small. It's just kind of standard size. The extended ATX is a bigger one. That's a bigger size. Micro ATX is a smaller version of an ATX, and then you have mini ITX, which is really specialized. These are mostly used in HP home theater, HTPC setup, home theater PC setup, because you don't want your computer to be like a big thing in the living room, that looks like a computer. It will look more like a set-top box. They can hide behind a big screen TV. Some of the cases for the mini ITX can also mount itself on the back side of a TV. They are small enough and compact enough to mount to the back side of a TV. I would not, I personally don't have any preference. I would just specify any here. If you have a specific need, like if you're trying to put together a tiny little system, then you want to pick, micro ITX or, mini ITX. Otherwise, there's no need to specify any particular type. So you click search, which is a great thing to do, and the combination that I specified does not have any result.
Nice.
Yeah, so that means I should go back and only specify like one thing at a time to specify a motherboard. You can also go by pricing. I don't want to spend any more than $200 on a motherboard, which is already on the slightly higher end. So now we have all these motherboards. You can sort by rating. In other words, you can change this one here and go for show all the items with best rating first. So this one is BioStar, but it only has 14 reviews, which is not a whole lot. The next one is only 6, 6, 1, 1, 1, 193. Okay, now this would be an interesting one to look at because it has USB 3.0 and so on. Yep, question? No. Okay. So when you look at a motherboard like this, the first thing you want to do is to look at read the details. The details will tell you a lot about the motherboard. The brand is Gigabyte. Okay, that's not very important. Socket type we already know because we have pre-selected the socket type already. This one will work with i7 and i5s. I suspect it will work with i3s just as well, but you won't use a $100 plus motherboard to get the lowest line processor. I mean, that just is a waste of money. The Northbridge is the Intel P55. Has got 4 memory slots. Remember, we talked about the number of memory module slots. This is good. Maximum amount of RAM is 16 gigabytes, which is perfectly fine. It has got one PCI Express 2.0 by 16 slot, and it has one that is not 2.0. So does that mean it has two 16-lane PCI Express slots? It looks that way. And it has a 1 by 1 lane and 3 normal PCI slots. Normal PCI is not really that useful anymore. I mean, these days most people move away from that. It has got 6 3 gigabit per second SATA connections and 2 of the highest speed versions, which is great. That's a pretty nice setup there. Does not have onboard video because your processor already have the onboard video. 8 channels for the audio part. The Realtek chipset for Ethernet is really a common one, so you won't have any problem finding a driver. There's nothing more frustrating than buying a computer, that has a brand new chipset, and then you try to load Windows on it, and Windows says, I don't know how to use a network. And in order to get the driver, you have to get online to download the driver, right? So now you have a kind of like a chicken and egg problem. Most people have a secondary computer. They can just go online with a secondary computer, download the driver, put it onto memory stick, get it back onto this PC, and then upload the driver. But it's a hassle. It really is a hassle. The part that I like about the back panel is it has 8 USB 2.0 ports already. That's basically the back part of the motherboard. So that means I don't need to use a lot of external hubs, in order to get the number of connections that I need. It also comes with 2 USB 3.0 connectors. That's the newer standard, which is a higher speed standard. So that's nice because now I can buy USB 3.0 devices and not having to worry that I won't be utilizing the full potential of those devices. It's got 6 audio ports. Onboard USB, there are 4 onboard USB ports, which means in addition to the 8 USB 2.0 ports on the back panel and the 2 USB 3.0 connectors to the back of the motherboard, I have 4 additional ones that are on the motherboard, with only the pins, okay, with only the interface, sticking out. So this way I can interface these 4 to the front panel of the case. I can have up to 4 of these. I would typically use up, like 2 of these to the front panel, and 2 or 1 of these will hook up to a multimedia card reader that I can also purchase. So this